Hare Krishna. We are here again reading from Venu Gita by His Holiness Shivaram Swami, the Krishna in Vrindavan series. And today we're going to finish this chapter 12, which is called, hold on. Yeah, which is called The Pulindis Take the Remnants of Kunkuma from Krishna's Lotus Feet. So, picking up here. Indulekha, dressed in a scarlet sari, her golden complexion hued green, well known for singing and making kabachas, addressed her friend. Dear Lalite, please explain to us the qualities by which Sri Krishna becomes known as Udugaya. At this suggestion, Sri Radhika's effulgent face became further illuminated, and she thought, yes, Lalite, if you want to fully utilize the ample resources given to you by the Creator, then by all means, please speak about my beloved and quench the thirst of my parched ears. Casting a loving glance in the direction of Sri Radha, Lalita said, Indu Prabha, you are inquiring about the identity of a noble messenger, Udugaya, whose lotus feet carried the kumkum powder, the immeasurable distance from the breast of our Radha to the bodies of the Pulindis. One is called Udugaya by those transcendental to the modes of material nature. If he is an elevated soul, Udu, who is regularly glorified by sublime prayers, Gaya. Sri Krishna is Ududa Giyate Gopa. He is glorified by the songs of the gopis, their affectionate words, and their humorous talks. Without a doubt, they are the most elevated souls of Raj, and therefore Krishna is well known as Udugaya. Sri Krishna's own behavior confirms his identity as Udugaya. By his extraordinary ability to sing through his flute, he bewilders even the most elevated transcendentalists. Certainly, he alone stands unique with the appellation of Udugaya. Anxious that the talks of her Prananath continue, Sri Radha said under her breath, Tell me more, my dear. Pulindya Purna, how have these wanton girls accomplished satisfaction of their desires, and how have they eradicated the torment in their bodies merely by contact with this kumkum? Lalita Devi explained, while looking towards Sri Krishna as he played his flute, the lusty Aborigine girls saw the reddish kumkum on the ground. When the kumkum was decorating the gopis' breasts, it had attained the pinnacle of good fortune. But when it touched Sri Hari's lotus feet, the powder obtained a special loveliness, a kanti vishesha. That unearthly beauty forcibly attracted the minds of the Pulindis and caused them to smear the kumkum all over their faces and bodies. Rangadevi, whose complexion was reddish like that of a lotus filament, continued, Tena eva mahabhusha. The Pulindis are generally not very attractive, and because they walk from forest to forest carrying wood on their heads, they do not wear much decoration or jewelry. However, it appears that they have acquired the highest ornamentation by means of the all-opulent kumkum, and they have achieved subsequent freedom from all mental pain caused by kama. How has all this come about? Acknowledging her friend's statement, Lalita Devi continued, when the Pulindis first saw the kumkum, they understood it to be the decoration from Sri Radha's breast. Thinking of her good fortune, they became afflicted with lust and were unable to tear their eyes from Sri Krishna's footprints. Tasya Trina Lagna Kumkumena. As they continued to gaze on the beauty of that powder, meditating on the form of Sri Krishna's lotus feet, they felt immediately relief from the onslaught of Kandarpa, and their minds regained their composure. Then, like iron attracted to a magnet, their hands became forcibly drawn by its soothing fragrance, and when they touched the kumkum, the fire in their bodies abated further. As they took that divine powder, picking up blades of grass and bits of soil, they first smelled its attractive aroma, and then smeared it on their faces as one applies cosmetics. Although the touch of the kumkum further pacified their lust, the Pulindis were overwhelmed with a greed for its touch. Then they smeared it over their breasts and completely relieved themselves of any mental pain. In this way, by seeing the kumkum, the Aborigine girls satisfied their sense of sight. By touching the kumkum, they satisfied their tactile sense. By smelling the kumkum, they satisfied their olfactory sense. and by smearing it all over their bodies, they fully satisfied their minds, the seat of all other sensory activity. Thus they achieve complete satisfaction from the torment of smara, their bodies and minds becoming completely peaceful. Lowering her face, Lalita concluded, "But we gopis remain here, a victim of that incorporeal Cupid, not able to achieve even a fraction of the Pulindis' good fortune." Seeing the unhappiness growing in Lalita's heart, which is always entwined with the hearts of her Sakis, and with her own sorrow thus increasing, Sri Radha directed her thoughts to her beloved gopi friend and spoke under her breath as follows. "Let us hear further about the specialty of this kumkum. As it has satisfied our Pulindis, its glories will no doubt pacify the torment in our hearts." Taking Sri Radha's cue as her only solace, her voice quaking with emotion, Lalita Devi said, "Dear friends, do not consider this kumkum to be a costly cosmetic readily purchased in the marketplace. Because it is Shri Kumkum, it possesses a special opulence that can be likened only to the goddess of fortune, Shri. If some uneducated person asks of the special opulence of Shri Ji, we will reply that her constant service to the lotus feet of Lord Narayan has empowered her to bestow attachment to his lotus feet. In the same way, this kumkum powder has the special potency to cause attachment, raga, to the lotus feet of Hari, Udu Gaya Padabja. Thus the Pulindis, smeared on their faces and breasts, and giving up the pain of Cupid, they become fully satisfied. Incredulous at the special power of this kumkum powder, which, though present on the breasts of all the gopis, has not received the final endorsement of Sri Krishna's lotus feet, Asaki says, "Saki kumkumena katam bhutena." I have understood from your talks that when the Pulindis saw the red-stained footprints of Govinda, they remembered his lotus face, beautified by his roving eyes and naughty flute. As a result, they became tormented by smara pida. In other words, by not obtaining him, these tribal girls became overwhelmed by mental affliction. Now you say that same kumkum smeared on their bodies satisfied their lust. Saki, please clarify the equivocal demeanor of your instructions and set our minds at ease. Feeling the reviving elixir of Krishna Katha, Lalita Devi replied, "Dearest, it is true that at first sight of the kumkum, the Pulindis became distressed by separation from Krishna. Although feeling great suffering due to their anguish, they very quickly came to understand that their only shelter would be the kumkum and nothing else. Yena ashesha ananda sampatna durim tantar advutam." As soon as the Aborigine girls touched that powder, which was soft, aromatic, imbued with sweetness, and radiating bliss, their miseries evaporated like mist in the sun. They became fully satisfied by touching that which had come in contact with Sri Krishna. Remember that Shri also refers to Dayita Sri Radha, who has great anurag for Krishna's lotus feet, who powders her breasts with kumkum to please him, and who exists only for his continued happiness. This simple cosmetic has acquired such immeasurable potency due to having been the fortunate medium for Radha Krishna's mutual expressions of love. O fortunate gopis of Vraj, what cannot be achieved by the mercy of this kumkum? The minds of the gopis became stained with the reddish anurag, which was the kumkum smeared on the bodies of the Pulindis. Fully absorbed in that pastime, they considered the perfection of their lives was to gain a minute fraction of the Pulindis' good fortune. Although the gopis were the origin of that powder, in their ecstasy of prema, such details had no meaning. Sri Radha, whose pain of separation from Sri Krishna was 1,000,000 times greater than her friends, became restless. She lamented the misfortune of being absent from the Pulindis' festival of bliss, and envisaged them smearing the reddish powder on themselves and each other. Unable to contain herself, her uncontrolled mind running towards that kumkum, Sri Radha thought, "Aho tat kumkumasya apiyayam gopi shakti vishesha." Just see the special glory of this kumkum, which is the exclusive property of these Pulindis, and which we have not even once attained in this life. Fully absorbed in the fortune of the Aborigine girls, Sri Radha now envisaged herself in the forest of Vrindavan, smearing the dust of Krishna's feet over her golden limbs. As Lalita Devi spoke, Radharani's ecstasies mounted to ever new heights, and she was no longer able to conceal herself from her friends. Raising her lovely voice, her absorption turned within, she said, "This Kumkum has attained extraordinary prowess, having obtained the feet of Sri Hari. That special divinity is the fragrance of my beloved's limbs, which is like a mixture of sandalwood pulp, aguru, musk, and camphor. The 8 lotus-like parts of Sri Krishna's body distribute this fragrance throughout the 14 worlds, entering the nostrils of women and then making its residence there. Capturing the minds of these women, that scent is so attractive that it enchants their bodies and minds, bewilders their nostrils, loosens their belts and hair, brings them completely under its influence, and finally, forcibly delivers them to Krishna. In this way, the scent of Krishna's body is like a plunderer. Falling completely under its influence, the nostrils yearn for this aroma continuously, although sometimes they obtain it, and sometimes they do not. When they have the good fortune to acquire it, they drink their fill, though they still want more and more. But if they do not have such luck, out of thirst they die. The dramatic actor Madan Mohan has opened a shop of scents that attracts the women of the world as his customers. He delivers the scents freely, but then makes the women so blind they cannot find their path home." Ranting like a mad woman, Radhika lost her composure. Being very close to the edge of the tower, she was physically restrained by her alarmed maid-servants and quickly attended to by her other Sakhis. Just then, the fragrance of Sri Krishna's body entered her nostrils and caused her body to become stunned and inert. To facilitate absorption in the enchanting aroma of Hari's limbs, all her senses took on the faculty of smell and served her insatiable desire to be fully merged in his fragrance. Lalita Devi, who now sat by Sri Radha, her loving arm wrapped around her shoulder, could understand that her friend had abandoned her own identity and had fully allied herself with the aroma of her beloved, giving up any sense of separate existence. For a while, Radhika appeared listless, her body immobile and her beautiful face motionless. Lalita Devi whispered, "This stage of Mahabhav is found only in Radhika, and it is known as Madana. It is the full-blown lotus of Prema, manifest in the association of Sri Krishna. Now she has exchanged her identity with the aroma of her beloved, which is the object of her attraction, and may soon be the vehicle for her meeting with Hari." Many wonderful and heretofore unseen symptoms of ecstasy manifest in the body of the crown jewel of all cowherd girls, who sat in the midst of her loving friends in that beautiful tower in the sky on that autumn afternoon at Javat. According to their individual relationships, the gopis understood what took place in Sri Radha's heart, and listening to the narration revealed by their crystal-like minds, they sat quietly absorbed in her exclusive mood. In her swoon of love, Sri Radha saw the many wanton aborigine girls within the forest of Vrindavan, absorbed in a festival of harvesting Sri Krishna's Kumkum footprints. While engaged in this sport, their attachment reaching ever new heights, the Pulindis saw Sri Krishna among them, standing in his threefold bending form, holding his flute to his lips, a peacock feather decorating his turban. To satisfy the burning in their hearts, the Pulindis ran to embrace Govinda, whose transcendental form is the only source of satisfaction for those desiring his company. When they embraced his forceful limbs, felt the touch of his massive arms, and smelled the aroma of his body, the daughters of the Shabaras considered their lives perfect. Their minds and senses fully satisfied, their hearts became peaceful like the ocean at the conclusion of a storm. As cool tears streamed from Sri Radha's eyes onto Lalita's lap, her pearl-like teeth rattled as if they were about to fall. Her body trembled with excitement, and her skin erupted with goose pimples. Understanding the mind of her Sakhi, Lalita spoke as she gently wiped her tears with a cloth. Krishna's footprints, the kumkum which has touched his feet, and the playing of his flute, like all things related to him, are an udipana to increase anurag, intense attachment. By contact with these things, it is not possible to satisfy the burning in the hearts of the gopis or Pulindi Kanyas. As fuel continually fed to a fire increases its flames, Contact with the Kumkum simply increases the smararuk of the Pulindis and cannot be accountable for the mental satisfaction they have achieved. Only Sri Krishna's association and the embrace of his snake-like arms can alleviate this burning of the heart and breasts. Sakis, look at the sweet smile on the lips of Sri Radha. See how her eyes move, full of coquetry, and feel the force of her bhav cooling your own hearts. Such happiness is possible only in association with her beloved. Whether the Pulindis saw Krishna or not, desiring to smell the fragrance of his limbs, Anga Saurabha, they have spread that kumkum on their faces and experienced the enjoyment of Sambhoga. As they spread the kumkum on their breasts, they were absorbed in thought of enjoyment with Krishna, and thus gave up all affliction and became completely satisfied. Speaking thus, Lalita continued to stroke Sri Radhika's hair and forehead, gazing into the inconceivable beauty of her peaceful face. The rays of happiness that spread from Sri Radha's heart illuminated all her friends, who felt themselves overjoyed, as if they had just gained the association of Hari. That cheerful effulgence continued to spread all around, causing the walls of the moon tower to gradually melt, and the birds sitting on the balustrade to stiffen and fall forward, tears of bliss flowing from their eyes. Like the rays of the sun, Radha's influence spread throughout Vrindavan, making all manner of beings experience unprecedented satisfaction. From there it traversed the world of men and entered the planets of the demigods. Though concerned for their safety from the hands of the demons, the Devas became overjoyed and began a great festival of chanting and dancing that was the Sankirtan of the holy name. In Kailash, Lord Shiva was reciting the Bhagavatam to his associates, holding Parvati close to his chest. Jumping high in the air, his trident above his head, he began to dance wildly and chant the holy names of the Lord. In Vaikuntha, Lord Narayan became overwhelmed with happiness, and while sitting on his throne surrounded by Garuda and Narada, he assumed a form of Shamasundar, as Lakshmi Devi transformed into Satyabhama. In Goloka Vrindavan, Lord Krishna, who was tending his cows near Govardhan, surrounded by many friends, having just passed the habitat of the Pulindis, his feet still smeared with kumkum, felt the astounding love of his Radhika strike him like a hurricane. Overwhelmed by her bhava, he lost all awareness of his identity, and his blackish body turned the color of molten gold as the gopas and cows stood by in amazement. Leaning forward, Lalita softly chanted the names of Sri Govinda into the delicate ear of Sri Radha, caressing her body with her loving hands. Gradually, that embodiment of divine love, the unrivaled princess of Vrindavan and the leader of her Sakhis, regained her external awareness and slowly opened her eyes, gazing into Lalita's face. Embarrassed by the attention of her other friends, Sri Radha gradually regained her composure and sat up, adjusting her clothing and straightening her tresses. When Radha awoke, she lost the association of her prananath. After experiencing so much happiness in her swoon, her external state became a source of unhappiness. Like the shifting winds of a cyclone, her mood changed. Hot tears welled in her eyes. Her lovely lips began to tremble, and her lovely face became lined with sorrow. Her voice quivering with emotion, she said, Adi hetutva parama arti sindhu magna. What is this great ocean of distress that has submerged me in its depths and robbed me of my very life force? The Pulindis were also drowning in this same distress, but were rescued by the kumkum from the lotus feet of Krishna. Because they have the supreme opulence of this kumkum, Mahalakshmi, it is to be understood that they are the recipients of the special favor of Bhagavan. Thus their lives are spared. We gopis are bereft of that life-giving kumkum and are condemned to drown in our own misery. Indeed, our pain grows by the moment, and therefore we are inferior to all living entities. Casting a plaintive glance into the eyes of her friends, she cried, Sakhis, if Sri Krishna does not care for us, but abandons us like straw to play with his friends, can we not take birth as Pulindis and gain the kumkum from his lotus feet? Receiving only silence as an answer, Radha held Vishaka's hands and pleaded, if we cannot become Pulindis, can we become that grass of Vrindavan, the carpet upon which Govinda continually treads, receiving the decoration of his kumkum on our heads? The overwhelming silence of the universe struggled with the weight of Radharani's Mohana Mahabhav and echoed the beating of her heart as its only song. Casting her face to the ground, she cried, neither will we become Pulindas, nor the grass of Vraj. What to speak of a Dayita who experiences his nectarian touch? Friends, we are suffering for our great sin. We have loved Krishna too much, and the fire of that Kama is now consuming our bodies and minds. But fear not, both will soon be reduced to ashes and dust. As Sri Radha drew a great sigh of unhappiness, the entire creation expanded and then contracted. Those living entities from Patala to Vaikuntha, who felt great happiness earlier, were plunged into an inexplicable ocean of distress. Their hearts overwhelmed with sorrow, their faces pale and drawn, everyone felt as if their lives had become a meaningless burden. Even Anantadev, his many tongues silent, lay his innumerable coils to the ground, about to abandon the multitude of universes resting on his hoods. Understanding that all existence was about to merge into Sri Radha's unbearable sorrow, and that all living entities would soon abandon their lives in misery, Lalita Devi took Radhika's hand in hers and gently rubbing them said, Priya, do you think that Sri Krishna, whose butter-soft heart melts with affection for you, who meditates on you incessantly, and who keeps your name on the tip of his tongue, is not at this moment searching for the pathway that leads to you? Look in the direction of that dust cloud raised by the hooves of Nanda Maharaj's herd. Behold your beloved, his forehead decorated with pearls of perspiration, his hair showered with dust of Vrindavan, his turban tilted on his forehead, his hair adorned with many flowers, walking like a baby elephant with his flute pressed to his lips. Hearing the description of Lord Krishna, Radhika stood up on the veranda, casting shame and shyness to the wind, anxious for a glimpse of her beloved. It was the time of Uttara Goshtim. The cowherd boys slowly made their way back to Nandagaon, driving the cows before them, entertaining Gopal by their smiling jokes, rivalry, and play, making Yavat the path by which they would reach their destination. As the wonderful Krishna sun rose in Yavat, the lotus eyes of the gopis bloomed, their lily-like smiles blossomed, and their bodies perspired like moonstones, and their hearts cooled in the shade of his presence. Sri Radhika thought, O Lajya Devi, shame! If you do not leave my entire body forever, then just leave the corner of my eyes for a second, so that I can just once taste the nectar of Sri Krishna's sweet lotus face. O cloud of bliss who shares the complexion of my beloved and protects him from the glare of the sun, please be pleased with me. Please do not obstruct my vision. O Cupid, I fall at your feet. In exchange for all my pious deeds, do not make me shake any more. Give me the boldness to lift my eyes just once to look at my beloved Sri Krishna. Just at that time, Sri Krishna came within Radhika's vision, and she became visible to his ever-roving eyes. The gopis repeatedly gazed at his lotus face as their bodies absorbed the breeze that touched his body. Their nose inhaled his bodily fragrance. Their ears drank the sound of his happy flute, and their lips tasted the nectar of his bimba fruit lips. In this way, the joy of their five senses increased unlimitedly. Sri Radhika thought to herself, is this a tamal tree, a roving cloud, or a moving sapphire sprout? Is it a mountain peak of collyrium, a swarm of black bees, or the wayward stream of the Yamuna? Have the glances of the doe-eyed gopis created a cluster of blue lotus flowers, which now makes its way to the fortunate path of my eyes? Incredulous at the vision before her, Sri Radha interrogated her mind in happiness. Can this be Cupid? She thought. No, because the god of love has no body and is named Ananga. Is this the king of spiritual flavors? No, because that king is not righteous. Is this a blooming desire tree of divine love? No, because such a tree cannot move. Her body trembling like a flower in the wind, she concluded, could this be my beloved entering the vision of my eyes? Could I truly be that fortunate? Speaking aloud, Radha addressed Vishaka. O Vishake, tell me the truth. Is my lover coming before my bee-like eyes, like a lotus flower, or am I dreaming again, only to be awakened to an ocean of sorrow? Vishaka felt horripilation all over her body when questioned by Radhika, whose voice faltered and whose eyes became restless in fear of her joking girlfriends. Vishaka said, O fair-faced one, your lover, who is the nice musk tilak on your forehead, the pictures of musk drawn on your breasts, the musk drop on your chin, the beautiful black collyrium on your eyelids, the blue lotus flowers on your ears and in your hair, has now come before you to give you satisfaction. Open your eyes wide and relish the good fortune fate has bestowed upon you. While walking among his cows and friends, Sri Krishna's eyes roved over the housetops of Yavat, absorbed in the sight of innumerable gopis. Although they were all beautifully dressed, and although they were more beautiful than the goddess Lakshmi, he continued to search the path which led to the vision of one whose momentary glance could satisfy all his desires. The nectar stream of the gopis' brightly shining faces could not quench Krishna's insatiable thirst, as could a mere ray of Radhika's sweet nectarian smile. When Govinda caught sight of his beloved surrounded by her Sakis on the summit of the moon tower, he became overwhelmed with joy and doubted the accuracy of his vision. Intoxicated at the prospect of seeing Radhika, Sri Krishna thought, "Is this the family goddess of luster, the goddess of youthful beauty, the opulence of sweetness personified, a flood of elegance, a river of bliss, a stream of nectar? Or could it be my beloved, who gives joy to all my senses?" As the red Saraswati stream of Krishna's glance combined with the blue Yamuna stream of Radhika's glance, they mixed and turned as white as the current of the Ganga. The Triveni in which Radha and Krishna's elephant-like hearts united then caused the lotus flowers of the gopis' eyes to blossom. The arrow of Sri Radhika's glance pierced Sri Krishna's heart, and his whole body became afflicted as if overcome by fever. His limbs became stunned, his turban fell from his head, his flute dropped from his hands, and unable to move, he fell like a tree into Baladev's arms. Consoling him with kind words, those boys whose existence was their Sakha's happiness took Krishna home, promising a meeting with his beloved at the close of the day. Sri Radha drowned in the unprecedented happiness of that moment. Wishing to show her appreciation for its kindness, she desired to worship that second with great pomp and éclat. However, being indiscriminate in his reign, time forced that instant to give way to the next, which in the absence of her beloved looked like a great desert with no end, no oasis, no hope, and no love. In such circumstances, she was unable to perform her puja, and due to that land's heat of separation, Radhika collapsed into the arms of her Sakis. Consoling her with a future meeting with Govinda, the gopis carried Sri Krishna to her chambers and attended to her paralysis and other symptoms of separation. To restrain her uncontrolled mind, which had fled in search of Sri Krishna once again, Lalita Devi sat beside Radhika's couch and began to clap her hands. In a voice as sweet as a cuckoo, she began to sing the kirtan of Radha and Krishna's names, which was the sure elixir to revive their Sakhi. As Vishaka played a mridanga, Indulekha played cymbals, and Tungavidya twanged her veena, the sound of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, engulfed the room in bliss, and streaming out the window, reassured all the animals of Raj that their presiding deity would soon be well. Having comforted the animals, that transcendental sound vibration continued towards Nandagaon and entered the ears of Sri Krishna, who, still immobile, was being carried home by his friends. When the sound of Sri Radha's name, entwined with his own, penetrated his heart, Sri Krishna felt as if she had entered his embrace and experienced the cooling touch of her limbs. Springing into the air with great energy, Sri Krishna shouted, "Hare, Hare!" again and again, and dancing down the road to Nandagram, to the amusement of his brother and friends, he sported in the ocean of love that sprang from the heart of his beloved. In this way, the moments of time that are free from the influence of time, but still disguise themselves as such, under the will of the divine, like a metronome that keeps pace of pastimes and counts the unlimited happiness that always overflows the shores of that limitless land, Vrindavan, observed another exchange of love between the divine couple under the influence of the song of the flute. That's the end of the chapter. Now there's this transcendental summary here. This concludes the 12th chapter of the Song of the Flute by a very insignificant disciple of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, wherein there is no further reference to the flute or the beauty of Sri Krishna, but the bewilderment of the gopis is caused by the inconceivable glories of the kumkum, which adorned the raised breasts of our Dayata Sri Radhika, the embodiment of Mahabhav, who carefully held the lotus feet of Sri Krishna to her heart, which then adopted that vermilion powder as its own treasure, while adding an additional beauty to it. And when Govinda walked by the side of Govardhan hill, this kumkum beautified his customary footprints on the soil, grass, and stones of Raj, and gave mercy to the low-class Pulindi girls, who, by possessing anurag, were more fortunate than the clouds, and greedily collected that special powder under the influence of lust, and smelling it, smeared their faces and bodies, becoming fully satiated, although such udipana should increase their kama, not quell it, which left the gopis to conclude that Udugaya, who was glorified by the songs of the gopas, had accompanied that kumkum and gave personal satisfaction to the Pulindis, thereby leaving the gopis to question the austerities leading to such great fortune, and how they could gain a drop of that kumkum, although in reality they were its origin. Wow, so nice. So that concludes our reading today. We finished chapter 12. And tomorrow we will pick up with chapter 13, which is called Giriraj as Hari Dasavarya. We're going to hear about Govardhan him. Thank you very much for listening. Venu Gita ki jai, Radha Krishna ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur